My story starts in a parking lot of a grocery store about 42 years ago. My mother had just learned how to drive. My grandfather, may he rest in peace, had cancer. My mother was already 40, and she didn't have a driver's license. She had to take him to his chemo appointments. So she learned how to drive, and she liked to practice. And her favorite place to go to was the grocery store that was about 5 blocks away, because my mother did not like to make left turns. And you could go the whole way just doing MS, making right turns. On this particular day, I was a typical 11-and-a-half-year-old girl, almost 12. I hadn't developed breasts yet, but I had those, long kind of coltish legs, and I wore the uniform that every Torontonian girl wore in those days. Little short Adidas shorts with the 2 stripes down the side. Remember them? Old school Adidas, which were white with the 3 blue stripes at the side. Anyone remember? A striped poor boy t-shirt. It's very in again, actually. It's all over the malls. And my hair was cut like, and now we're going to see who's over 50, Dorothy Hamill. In short, I was prepubescent and I was fabulous. And I wore the same outfit every day. Until that one particular day. We drove to what was then the corner of Bathurst and Steeles, and it used to be Food City. Just a little Toronto shout out, Thornhill border. In my mother's car, which was an old Impala, and the windows rolled down. Remember that? And it was a warm day, and of course we weren't wearing seatbelts, and I was sitting in the front seat with my feet up on the dashboard so I could admire my new Adidas, and we pulled into the parking lot. My mother was going to drive around it a few times, and we were going to go home. It was bonding time. When a woman started rushing over to the car, and she comes over, and my mother rolls down her side, and she says to my mother, "Helen Gold? I haven't seen you in 15 years, my goodness. I know you have 4 children now, and that must be your son, Jeffrey." You laugh. But that was the seed, the moment that never quite left. Because I was a fool. When the woman left, and my mother said, "Don't be silly, that's Adrian," or what she called me, 80. What I should have said later, instead of burying and sublimating that angst, do I look like a boy, do I look like my brother, was an instant shift psychologically. Something's wrong. I don't look like a girl. Like I said, I was prepubescent, but that didn't mean I didn't have all the pubescent angst and the readiness to start to identify as a woman. Now today, an 11-year-old is already dresses like a porn star. In those days, I was like... So I went home, and I went into my mother's private bathroom, where she had the first, and now my favorite thing on the planet, 10 times magnifying mirror. How is it, by the way? Thank you. In those days, I was not looking for chin hairs. Rather, I was looking to see... If you tell anyone, I was looking rather to see if I really looked like a boy. And upon reflection, I decided that I did not look like a girl. I looked like my brother, and that I was unfeminine, and on top of that, really ugly. My solution to that, and you know what? The root of any kind of social, neurotic anything often has a pivotal point. And if you can find it, and that's what a good therapist will often help you do, will help you go back to the root of the anxiety that keeps re-representing over and over in your life in different manifestations. It took me many years to remember this. But I went into my mother's bathroom and I stole all her, now it's another aging thing, those little mini white tubes that stacked by Avon with the different lipstick colors. Remember those? I took about 4 of them. I shoved them in my pocket, a ton of lipstick, Vaseline to put over top of the lipstick, mascara from my teenage sister's room, and I put together an entire kit of makeup. Now, I wasn't permitted to wear makeup. The next day I went to school, and I remember going into the bathroom, and in those days you would have these water fountains that were semicircular, and you stood on a bar, right? Remember those? Oh my gosh. And it came out like a shower. And I stood on the bar, and the water was rolling, so I could see the mirror, and I made my face up so that no one would ever confuse me as a boy. I never worked that issue through, and by the following year, at 12 and a half, almost 13, when I was starting to develop, I had further reinforced in my mind that I was hideous, undesirable, and that no boy would ever like me. And that was terrifying. And it really, ladies, is the source of most of the anxiety of your daughters, and was the reason that they dress like porn stars. I did not think there was a future for me, and I don't know why this became so entrenched. I decided at that point that if I couldn't attract people, I would distract people. And I began a journey into becoming a fashionista. I would wear the most outrageous clothing, the most outrageous makeup. My hair underneath my shaitel is very much like yours, beautiful, thick, curly, not anymore, but beautiful, thick, curly hair. All anyone wore in those days was long, straight hair parted in the middle, like yours. I couldn't, no matter what I did, I could not look like you, and I really wanted to, and nothing worked. And I could not bear having people see my inability to succeed. And I would do whatever I had to do, whether it was cheat or lie or manipulate, to distract people from noticing any vulnerability in me. It's pathetic, I know. And from a physical point of view, what I decided to do to that beautiful curly hair, so that no one would know that no matter how many times I straightened it, I looked like Rosanna Dana the next morning, was... You see, you know who she is, too. Alava Sholem. I got a perm. I made my hair huge. It was as big as a city block. And that way, when people looked at me, they would not say to themselves, oh, Nebuch, she can't make her hair straight and fashionable like Cher or Christy Brinkley. She must like that look. Now, as the years went by, I became so adept at this. I had a particular piercing system that attached from the nose to the eyebrow, to the ear, to the lip, to the hand. Oh, man. I got more and more intricate as the years go on. But here's the thing, and this is the danger, and the work you need to do, like starting now. I forgot the genesis of the problem. And I convinced myself that I was inherently in love with style and aesthetics and fashion. This was my thing. What was a corrective necessity became, in my mind, an aesthetic accessory. I had forgotten the root. As years went on, I became so adept at it, and people were so clear that that was my passion, that I developed a career in the fashion industry, first as a consultant, a management consultant for retailers in the 80s when, you know, all you had to do is look sideways at something and you could make more money. And then ultimately, my television career began. And my television career reinforced the same issue that got me into fashion in the first place. Excuse me. Long before there was ever email, people would fax things. Remember faxes? I would get hundreds of faxes every week. I had a daily style, fashion, and beauty program on the Life Network that was national for 450 episodes. I had was one of the co-hosts of Canada AM, which is like your Good Morning America. I was the style expert on all kinds of TV shows. And the response was always the same. Dear Miss Gold, you're not very attractive, but we love looking at you. Dear Miss Gold, watching you on TV makes us so proud of being average-looking Jewish women. You can see that even an average-looking Jewish woman can rise to the top. Like, shut up. Nothing was changing. My favorite one was, "Dear Miss Gold, in the outfit you were wearing yesterday," which, by the way, was borrowed from the Chanel boutique because, you know, when you're on TV, everyone wants you to borrow their clothes. "You looked vaguely paraplegic while sitting on that stool. Because you're so short-waisted, your trunk appeared to be sitting on your legs. I suggest that if you will continue wearing those kinds of suits in that chair, you could do to lose 20 pounds. But we love you." Over and over and over. It's like Hashem's message for me, for some reason, was meant to be, do not have your self-esteem tied up in how you look, because everyone's going to remind you that it's not good enough. I didn't get it then. What I did get, though, was tons of gorgeous women who looked like you came and went in television, but I was still there. That slightly chubby, Semitic-looking girl with liver lips and curly hair who didn't quite cut it was still working. That there was something I had going on, something that was sustaining. Years later, when I started to study Judaism, I believe that I identified that quality as something called chen. It's an internal loveliness that comes from not over-focusing on your exterior, rather developing the power of giving and loving and sharing that illuminates you and lights you up the way no BB or CC cream can ever do. But that's for later. I became very adept at it, and any of the insecurities I felt before were buried under a sea of "she's famous." And you have to know something. Canada is a small pond. I was a big fish in a really small pond. But I still got a lot of attention, and that was feeding that early kind of panic. And then something happened. My best friend got married. I was, I believe, about 32 years old, and I had 34. I had everything. A husband who loved me and loves me still. I had a newborn son and one who was 3. I was a national television personality. And I went to a wedding. Now, I should tell you that I had just given birth to Jack, the one some of you met in the thing, and my boobs were massive. Like, each one of them bigger than my head. And so I had this wedding to go to. So I got this dress. Be quiet, you know what I mean, those of you who don't have big boobs. Massive, and they were, to quote Jerry Seinfeld, they were real and they were spectacular. So, far be it from me not to work my assets. I got this black dress. I remember this dress like it was yesterday, skin tight with a fishtail back, cut so low if I bent over you could have nursed on me at the table, right? And my heels up to here, slid up to here. I was fabulous. And I specifically, dafka, how do you say that in English? Like, intentionally chose this dress because my girlfriend was getting married by an Aish rabbi. With a long-sleeved, high-necked dress. I thought it was hysterical. She would go to Torah classes with this woman who I'd never seen until that night. I was the MC of the wedding, and anyone was there, tell you I was fabulous. I was fabulous. So you can see, shy is not my issue. So I looked amazing. I was on TV. My breasts were spectacular. And all of the women were hanging around this woman wearing sandals with stockings. Her skirt, her neck, and her hair didn't move. And I'm like, What does she have that I don't have? And they would follow her around like little ducklings, and they'd listen to everything she said, and they'd dance together in a little circle, holding hands. And I would look at her and go, first of all, those shoes are ridiculous. Second of all, she's an attractive woman. Why is she dressed like that? What is this, 1814? And it's all black. And like, who is that? And I was starting to get annoyed because she was cutting into my action. So I kind of followed her until she went into the bathroom, and I literally went into the bathroom, into a stall. Is this stable? If this falls over, I'll die. It'll just make me feel fat, you know what I'm saying? I sat there with my legs up off the toilet, and I listened to her talking, and I went, oh, she's actually saying something kind, meaningful, loving, outwardly focused. And I stalked her the entire night. She would never know, because how would she have noticed my face when my breasts were there? And she must have had to avert her eyes, even as a woman. I can't imagine. And her husband was there. I am so sorry. And it triggered something in me. Why didn't she have to try so hard? And why was she naturally charismatic? What was it that I was not accomplishing as a TV personality with spectacular breasts? Have I mentioned them enough times? Because they're so long gone that I think of them fondly. And not just because I cover them now. And this planted the seed. Okay, I'm going to continue. So that's my shtick on Lori Never. It was Lori Palatnik. Isn't that funny? It's my first exposure to her. I wanted to kill her. Didn't understand it, couldn't get it. So outside of that model of life. Okay. In Canada, if you work in television, there's a period called hiatus when you're in rerun season. Nobody watches TV anymore. You watch it on the internet or Netflix. But when you were in rerun season, you had to make some money. So I became a stylist. Long before runway people had stylists, I was a very popular stylist, mostly in the industry of television commercials and things like that, or print ads. And I had this experience. I was starting to study. I went to a group. My kids by now could not help them with their kindergarten homework. I was feeling a little Jewishly displaced, I thought, and I kept thinking about that woman, and I went, okay, gotta go learn something. So I went to what was called a home group in those days, and the first time I went, the rabbi, God bless him, had this tick where he had to lift his kippah every 2 seconds, and as I have full-blown OCD, I recognize a tick when I see one. And all I could do during the first class was count how many times in a half an hour he did that. And I wanted to say to him, 20 milligrams of Prozac, it'll be gone. But it didn't seem to be appropriate. I won't tell you who that rabbi was, but keep your eyes open in Toronto. All right, so... Okay, the second time I went... I got over staring at it. Actually, he was wearing a hat the next time, and he didn't do it with the hat, so, okay. So I started to learn, I started to study, and it was interesting, and it was invigorating, and it was intellectually satisfying. Here's something you need to know about me. I am not particularly spiritual. I live in my head. I am a bracha body with a chaim soul. I analyze everything, down to the last hair on my chin that I couldn't get this morning. Everything. Everything goes through rigorous work. So for me, the pure intellectual stimulation of studying Torah knocked my socks off. My bracha body and my chaim soul were really in a state of cognitive dissonance. Do you know what that means from a psychological term? The way I presented myself to the world, fabulous fashion image, had no relationship to what was always going on in my head. And that cognitive dissonance was so uncomfortable, but I didn't quite understand what the disconnect was yet. When I started to learn to go to Torah classes, to study with women like Lori and other rabbis, I realized that there was a wealth of living, and I am a greedy girl. I am a sensualist. I am a hedonist. I want to eat more of it. I want dessert. Kiss me again, no, harder. I want to hug. I want to smell those flowers until the stem is up my nostrils and I have like, you know, when I smell like lilies, I got that orange. I mean, I can't get enough of life. And I realized, oh my God, I've been missing a massive chunk of pleasure. But I didn't know it was there. Because here's the thing, girls. I mentioned this last week when I was in Connecticut. One time in my life, I went to a workout once. And I couldn't sit for 4 days afterwards. Who knew you have muscles in your tuchus? Who knew? I'd never felt them before because I'd never used them before. Everybody on this trip cries. You know why you cry? You cry because your soul is leaking out of your eyes, because a soul is like a coal on those old briquette barbecues where you look at them and it's a black gray thing. It's so hot that it turns white gray, but when you go, you can see the bright red underneath it. For the last 5 days, we've been blowing on your soul, and you're now on fire. It was always there. Always there. Just like there's butt muscles, but don't ask me to ever exercise them again. When I started to study Torah and actually live it, my coal lit up so intensely that I realized, oh my gosh, who wants to go through life? It's like having a car, I was saying to someone on the way here, with heated seats, and you don't know you have heated seats. You can get perfectly well from A to B, but in Toronto, you'd like to have a warm tush. Suddenly, the level of pleasure, pure hedonistic joy, had redoubled and manifold. And I wanted more and more and more, and everything I learned and every exercise in Jewish behavior that I took on, more, because its response, its return, the mind paradigm shift that teaches you how to rethink everything and reframe it in a way that everything, even the garbage, is an opportunity. Most people will spend with their stupid Suzanne summer machine squeezing the heck out of their thighs to try and get nice, slim upper legs. Why can't you work your soul out? Everything bad, or perceptibly bad, that happens to you, everything, is just a Nautilus machine for your neshama. You can make it fit. I started to fall in love with all of this, and the fashion industry was starting to get really, really kind of for me. And then there was a paradigm shifting moment. I was working as a stylist. They were doing a dryer sheet ad. When the dryer sheets first came out, it was a still shot, the washing machine and a dryer, twin 12-year-old boys, and a mother. I had to get the clothes for them. The 12-year-old boys were easy. When you're working on camera or with magazine ads, they're often shot 3 to 6 months in advance of coming out, so you have to anticipate the styles of the season coming up. The clothes have to be appropriate to when it's going to run, and if that magazine sits in your dentist's office for 7 years, it can't look dated. So it's real work. The mother was reaching into the dryer to take out their soccer clothes. You know how the kids' sports clothes sticks together, and it wouldn't have static. But they didn't have a model yet to play the mother. Fine. When I got home that day, my fax machine had spat out this model's resume, what we call a composite card in the business, so that I could go out and shop for her. And she was 19 years old. Now, do the math. She's a 19-year-old with 12-year-old boys. I don't even know any super frum people in Mea Shearim who could pull that off. This is not happening. And then when the print ad came out, ladies, they airbrushed the heck out of her. Because apparently 19 is also too old to play 48. And I started to realize that the fashion industry hates women. The beauty industry thrives on the currency of youth and beauty, and to tell you, you're not good enough, you're too fat, you're too thin, you're too short, you're too tall, you smell bad, your skin's terrible, your hair's too curly, your hair's too straight, it's not sleek enough. And when you look at the names of cosmetics, you will see a fascinating thing. They co-opt the language of spirituality in order to tap in to that existing yearning for spirituality that nobody addresses anymore. So your foundation makes you lit from within. You're luminous. You're effervescent. When you have cake that's highly thick and rich, it's called devil's food cake. But when it's light and fluffy and low-cal, it's angel's food cake. Start looking around at the language of the sales of beauty and know this. No matter how good looking you are, and there's some hot looking women in this room. I know because I picked 45 of them. No matter how good you look, at this point, someone is saying, for your age. You look at your 22-year-old daughters and you know, based on the culture of youth as a currency for women, that all the Botox and all the Restylane and all the dieting and all the Pilates and all of the aerobics and any cosmetic surgery, they still haven't figured out how to fix our hands or that area in our neck or how to lift up the skin of your eye so you don't look like that woman, you know, who had the nebuch like cats. At a certain point, people are going to tell you you look beautiful for your age. What the heck is that? I do not want to be told to go away and hide under a rock because I'm now over 50. I am as sensual, as sexual, as passionate, and as beautiful as I ever was because I never actually even thought I was. But somehow, I was blessed to find out that that's the unique, intrinsic part of me that is a piece of godliness, glows like an angel. Now, here's the problem. Just a small little piece of Jewish wisdom. There's a particular Torah portion where we talk about this traveling Mishkan that Lori was just talking about. That where we get the rules of Shabbat from. And there was a box in the center of this traveling Mishkan, and the directions are right there in the Torah. It says this box, which contains the tablets that Moshe received, this box needs to be gold on the outside and gold on the inside. So our sages weigh in on that. Well, what does that mean? It reinforces a position in Judaism that is fundamental, and that is something should look on the outside the way it is on the inside. That having one without the other, that hypocrisy is problematic. A perfect example is the etymology of the Hebrew language. Etymologically, the word speaks to the essence of the thing in Hebrew. The word for face, panim. It comes from and is very close to a word pnim, which means internal, inside. The mega message there is the outside of the face should reflect what's on the inside. How many of you have met people who are one way on the outside and really different on the inside? Yeah. Ever had their knife in your back? Yeah. The second interesting reference to this is the fact that even though most of you, whether you're kosher or not kosher, most of the world knows that the one animal that Jews are not supposed to eat is the pig. Now, you're not allowed to have lobster either, or shrimps, or mushu pork from Chinatown, or a nice Philly cheesesteak, or any of those things. But most people only know that Jews don't eat pork. Why? Our rabbis tell us it's because there are two signs that make an animal kosher: cloven hoofs and chewing of the cud, the regurgitation of the food that the animal does. There is one animal in the entire world, and zoologists concur on this, and they have never found another one that has the outward signs of kashrut, but the inward sign is not there, and that's the pig. The pig represents hypocrisy. You need to be gold on the inside and gold on the outside. Now, I want to show you how far we've come since my 18-year-old model played the mother of a 12-year-old, to help you understand how you need to start to romanticize reality, because you live in a lie. Let's begin. Can I have picture number 1? I want you to look at these 4 beautiful women. Look at them closely. Very, very, very closely. Not you. Don't look at them closely. Yeah. Actually, the fact is, you can look at them closely. I'm here to tell you why. This, my friends, is the website from the world's largest now retailer, H&M. H&M has now a website for their bathing suits and lingerie. I want you to look closely at woman number 1, woman number 2, woman number 3, and woman number 4. They look alike, don't they? Do you want to know why? Apparently, ladies, none of us are attractive enough to be lingerie and bathing suit models anymore, so we had to create a cyber image. Those are robots, cyber images. Those are not real women. They take models' faces and they transfer them. Photoshop will give someone black skin because it's far worse to be politically incorrect and not racially inclusive than it is to eliminate the presence of a reality of a woman who, by the way, has fat and stretch marks and, you know what, I'm going to stop talking about myself. They plaster her face on. H&M had to take this website down because the feminists finally woke up. You want to talk about modernity? You're going to tell me that I'm in the dark ages because I cover my body now, and we're going to get to that in a minute, when this is the meta message you're getting when you go into the Gap and size 0 and now double 0 exists? What's the meta message of 0? When you know what, because I worked in the industry for years, it's just a 4, so don't fool yourself. Do you know what a message is of a 0? The message of a 0 is disappear, go away. That's modern, that's empowering of women. We should be a 0. That's our sign of success, that we're nothing. Language has power. Women have body fat. We are told, the first mitzvah in the Torah, to be fruitful and multiply. And you know what? You can menstruate when you're starving, but you can't ovulate. And we have a generation of our young girls who are trying to hold themselves up to something that isn't even real. Do you understand? It's not real and it's not sustainable. Can I have the next picture, please? This is the cover of Fashion Magazine, the international biggest fashion magazine in Canada. It's our Vogue. This model, this gorgeous blonde who looks very, very much like I wanted to look when I was a teenager, is Europe's #1 model now. In fact, this model was chosen by Jean-Paul Gaultier, which is like we're talking couture of couture in Paris, to model the finale wedding gown. A semi-sheer number like this, carrying a lunch pail, oddly enough. In the finale of the Paris fashion shows 2 years ago, #1 model and highest paid in Europe on the European catwalks now. Look at her. She's tall, she's flat-chested, she's narrow-hipped, and she doesn't have to starve herself to death to get to that aesthetic. You know why? Because she's a boy. The #1 model, Andrei Pejic. Get on your phone and Google it right now if you think I'm making it up. Next picture, please. That's a man. The #1 catwalk model in Europe is a man, and if that's not the ultimate misogynist insult to women, I don't know what is. I am sorry, but if the fashion industry is run by a homoerotic aesthetic, where a woman should look like a boy, do you think it's any coincidence, this whole homoerotic thing, that women should not look like women? Ken talked about it, ladies, 4 days ago. Women bring soul and conscience and depth to men. You push us away, you make us disappear, you get to exercise everything about you that is unholy. We are the world's moral conscience, Jewish women. And when you refuse to eat a sufganiyot, when you don't have dessert, when you walk around obsessing, oh, I look like a fat pig, look at me today, I'm fat, I'm hideous, I'm disgusting. It didn't stop me from becoming a TV star. It doesn't have any power. If you can't figure out how to make yourself feel beautiful and project that, no amount of dieting is going to help. And no size 0, and no boy playing a girl, because apparently there isn't even a real woman good enough to be the finale of the Jean-Paul Gaultier fashion show. Is there one more shot, or is that it? There we have it. Here's my message to you. Judaism, Torah study, is about the search for truth. We live in a culture that is a lie. And I know because my job was to help perpetuate it, and I was good at it. And I need to apologize to so many of you, because I assure you, every show that I did about how to look 10 pounds thinner, or how to camouflage this, or how to be a completely woman-hating woman, where half of the women I have taken on these trips over the year, it takes them 4 days to get over judging a woman who's attractive because you're so threatened by her, as though she somehow is going to take a piece of your action. Oh, she's beautiful, she's slender, she has great skin. She couldn't possibly have any problems. Her life is perfect. Let's just marginalize her. We'll call her a Jap. We'll say she's stupid. She's not one of us. There is a horrible female hatred, woman to woman, that is perpetuated by showing us images that we can never achieve. When I started to learn all this, that I realized that what I took for granted as modern right, I'll wear what I want. There was a woman in Hamilton, Ontario named Gwen Roberts, I think, who won the right to go topless on the streets. Remember her? Gwen Jacobs. She won the right to go topless. Our equality should make it possible to wear whatever we want. That I should be able to get my 10-year-old at H&M Kids a t-shirt that says porn star. That I should know that in almost every hospital in Toronto, there are little girls with feeding tubes down their throats who cannot allow themselves to enter puberty because the fat terrifies them. because maybe they heard a little many 2 times from mommy. Do I look fat in this? Does my butt look okay in this? Is my stomach flat in this? Am I okay? Because we transfer it over. We have to save our next generation. I am telling you this because I spend more time visiting children and helping them understand that it's not their fault, that their aesthetic has been tainted by lies, that they can never look like what they want to look like because it doesn't exist. It's not reality. In Judaism, a woman's dignity and glory is within. That does not mean you walk around in a burqa. It means that you continue the response to the original fashion design story, which you will find in Parshas Breshit in Genesis. Adam and Chava, Adam and Eve, were in the Garden of Eden, and they were naked, and they were not ashamed. And then they ate the fruit of the tree that was forbidden to them, and they internalized, they ingested an admixture of good and evil. That admixture of good and evil is called confusion, lack of clarity, the inability to see if something is good or something is not good. In Gan Eden, we learn, in the Garden of Eden, there was a time when if you looked at something that was beautiful, it was good for you and delicious. And if you looked at something and it was ugly, it was poisonous and foreboding. After we ate and ingested that confusion, you could no longer have that. But there's a piece of all of us that desperately wants to cling to the idea that if something is attractive, it's good, and if something is ugly, it's bad. Well, that's a lie. And there are many, many, many references in the Torah that reinforce that. One of the most profound was in an exhibit at Yad Vashem about 15 years ago, where they had a piece of art. Imagine that was the art, and you came at it from about where this corner group is. And when you stood from a distance, what you saw was a spectacular rolling hills with a burning red sun setting in the distance. And the closer you got, what you saw was that it was a pile of broken, naked corpses of our people, stacked, waved, to look like hills and mountains, and the red fire of the crematorium in the background. What you see is not what you get. When Adam and Chava ingested from that tree and internalized confusion, when they came towards each other originally, if Leslie was walking towards me here, I saw Leslie, her soul, her essence. I didn't notice the beige pashmina, the gold necklace, the brown t-shirt, and the brown shoes. I didn't see her skin or her hair. I saw her essence. After that, we saw no longer the soul. We saw the body, and we went like this. The beginnings of shame. And God, the very first fashion designer, fashioned for us some clothing, fig leaves, skin, bones, so that when we saw each other, we were distracted from the external to force us to focus on the internal. Do you get that? The reason that observant Jewish women, and in my opinion, all women should reject sexual clothing, erotic identification visually, and to embrace the idea of modesty in dress is because it forces you to come inside out rather than outside in. For the very first time in my life, I feel beautiful. I mean, beautiful. And anyone who's known me for a long time would probably say I am actually aesthetically prettier than I was 10 years ago. I will tell you this. Those boobs that met Lori, and that dress, those shoes, my leather bustiers, my perms, all of those things. And don't get me wrong, aesthetics are important. Jewish women are the daughters of the king, and you should look like royalty. I am not suggesting that you get rid of your aesthetic. What I am suggesting, though, is that you don't sell yourself sex first, body first. Because you know what, girls? It's so fast. It goes so quickly. I was 43 years old when the plastic surgeon started calling the network and saying, if you'll just let us do plastic surgery on the air, we'll let you have it for free. It's time that you got a facelift. It's time that you got some Botox. You could test the Restylane. We'll do it for free. Just let us show it on the air. Thank God, Baruch Hashem, by this point, I was really a feminist. To be an Orthodox Jewish woman and to be a feminist is not an oxymoron. Feminism is the belief and understanding that the female has value equal to a man, equal but different, but equal. Recognize that if you want the next 35 to 55 years of your life to feel good, take your eyes off of the pictures. Turn the page. Read something else. Study and focus on the internal beauty and the essence of developing your character, what we call your midot. And you too, I promise you, will suddenly feel so beautiful that you will be radiant and it won't need anything else. Everything in Jewish wisdom helps you get to that place. For me, I wanted people to see me. For the first time since I was 12 years old, I did not want to distract. I wanted people to see me. And ironically, I had to cover myself in order to truly be seen. My blessing to all of you is that you get your intrinsic worth, that you understand that God does not make junk, and that you are exactly right the way you are. Perfect. And that there is no greater workout than studying your Jewish heritage and uncovering and blowing on that soul that is the whole core of all of us. Thank you so, so, so much. Oh, no, don't do that.
Adrienne Gold, the one and only.